You're watching TelecomTV from the TIP Summit 2017 in Santa Clara. And I'm joined now by Marc Cohen. Marc, good to see you again on TelecomTV.
Thank you, Guy. Good to see you as well.
We've been talking about networking for years now. And as we do so, you can't help but notice the increase and proliferation in groups, whether these are industry groups, standards, organizations, open source projects. How do we as an industry take advantage of this wide range of groups whilst at the same time not duplicating work and actually making a positive contribution?
Well, first of all, it's been exciting to watch over the past 5 or 6 years the not necessarily proliferation, but the incredible growth of the open community. Open defined as open source projects as well as standardization efforts, and then industry groups as well. And if we go back to the early days, we only had a handful, but when we look at 2016-17 timeframe, we've had an explosion, and now there's 15, 20 groups that are all involved in the open SDN and NFV community. And what we are starting to recognize, not to mention many of the major participants from the service provider community, from the vendor community, large solution providers, what they've all been struggling with is how to effectively participate and also how to determine how these groups all fit together. And we haven't really been able to make very much progress until recently because we really haven't even had a forum to have this discussion.
So you advocate the need for harmonization across all these bodies, is this right? And this comes out of, it's a natural evolution of the open revolution.
Yes, and harmonization, for those of our audience who are not familiar, is this idea that actually the Linux Foundation actually had been promoting, based on prompting from a lot of large organizations behind the Linux Foundation and the projects that they're involved in, is the idea of putting these things together into a broader framework. And these things specifically are open source projects, and determining how open source relates to one another, and also the changing role between open source and open standards and how they're participating in a new generation of a technology adoption life cycle, which is of most importance to major operators who are deploying making these large-scale bets on technologies for the future.
So as we stand today, there isn't a forum, there is, and so how much collaboration do you say is going on at the moment? Because obviously we need more, I guess.
Yeah, the collaboration to date has been encouraging, but it's been informal. One of the differences between the way that the open community has been working than some of the traditional standardization activities of the past is that it's been much less dependent on formal liaisons and agreements and contracts, and much more so about individual relationships and the responsibilities that are shared among different groups about how these individual activities are going to work together into this new open environment. And what we can expect to see is a greater amount of collaboration, but that's only a part of the problem. We still need to sort of organize this into a framework that makes it a lot easier, especially as an increasing number of operators become directly involved in these activities, as opposed to being somewhat on the sidelines.
Which brings me on to the point here that is there a danger that a lot of operators will say, look, there were so many bodies here, we just can't allocate our resources and our human resources appropriately. We need to bring it in-house. So you know what, we'll do it all ourselves.
Well, I think operators are struggling with trying to figure out how to plug into the community. I think this is relatively new, especially open source participation. They have very sophisticated and tremendous technology resources with their labs, their research groups, not to mention their product groups. But at the same time, this is a development function in many ways, and this is a new area, at least outside of their IT organizations, in participating directly in network software development. And as a result, we're going to need some new level of thinking to be able to bring together the different groups into a new type of working arrangements so that we can actually achieve this goal of harmonizing all the different activities to be able to refine the new technology adoption lifecycle.
So how do you recommend industry would go about such a process?
Well, I think first of all, we're going to need some neutral parties to step in and offer to mediate the discussion, or at least offer to host the discussion. We need to have a formal participation, not necessarily a contract, but some type of arrangement where individual groups are going to be committed to working together, to exposing themselves to having their own individual work programs under the at least assessment and discussion by others who may have somewhat overlapping charters, to be able to come together and agree on some common objectives that allows for a win-win arrangement. I mean, it can't be an ideal arrangement where everybody gets a nice little piece that's easily separable. There'll certainly be some overlap, but what we need is the spirit of collaboration that has been one of the hallmarks and one of the refreshing changes about how this collaboration has worked up to date. Only it's been very informal.
Marc, fascinating insights as always, and let's hope next time we speak we'll see some movement and some progress towards this. But for now, thank you, Marc, indeed.
Thank you, Guy, and good luck with the TIP Summit.